This segment is brought to you in part by the Canadian Historical Arms Society, owners of the Genesee Range, the premier recreational sport and training facility in Western Canada. See us online at historical-arms.com.
The Quiet Professional, a podcast about law enforcement, security, justice, and politics. We are digging deeper on the issues and going where the information takes us with access to experts and authorities. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Quiet Professional. Today we are going to be talking about human trafficking, but some of the different forms of it, maybe ones a little less spoken of. This is going to take us into the world of dating coaches, sex tourism, and social media's place in all of this. For that, I've got Justine Hopkins on the show. She is a survivor of her own experiences in this realm of topics. Her work now spans advocacy, policy, and legal reform, exposing institutional failures and emerging trafficking tactics, especially in nightlife, digital spaces, and encrypted platforms, while turning complex threats into practical knowledge for communities and decision makers.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Hey, you know what? I was reading through the little bio that I was just going through, and I was thinking that last line was probably one of the most important. And I don't think I've seen anybody have that in their bio before. And it's probably one of the most important pieces because you're talking about taking those complex threats and breaking it down so that you can actually educate people. And especially with the work you're doing, like you're starting to get into a lot of the policy side and the advocacy. I mean, you're going and talking to people that have no clue about this world or what people experience in it. So I just want to say, like, I commend you on that. And I think that is a huge component. It is a space that is sorely needed, that we need people in there educating. And so just, that's a big thing to take on. So congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I never in a million years could have ever expected my life to turn out to what it is now. And it's been challenging, but I'm really happy with how far I've come. And I do feel like I'm helping a lot of people out there by raising awareness on these topics. And you're right, absolutely. I mean, even my parents, I was sharing this with them. They didn't even know what the manosphere was necessarily. And for those who don't know, the manosphere is just a term that refers to the red pill community or like the alpha males and the incels. So yeah, there's a lot of education that needs to happen in this space and a lot of understanding because there's also misconceptions as well. And I'm just here to answer any questions that people may have and to raise awareness.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's start just talking a bit about you. Let's get a background on you and learn about some of your experiences. So wherever you would like to start, let's take it from there. So you take it away.
Yeah, so I am currently 23 years old and I'm enrolled at university in the journalism program. So I'm a journalist. I'm supposed to graduate next year, so it's going to be really exciting. And I really enjoy writing, and then advocacy it was never in my plan, but it just sort of happened when I spoke out against an individual who was a dating coach and a club promoter. I don't really like using the term high profile because I don't like giving him that attention, but he is, we'll say, well known in the Toronto space. And, when I came forward, I had so many people reaching out to me and thanking me and sharing their own experiences. And I realized that I wasn't the only one. And that's where the advocacy kind of fell in. And I realized a lot of people are listening to my voice. They're interested in what I have to say. And I can actually make change. And then I met the co-founders of the Survivor Collective and Project Medusa. And there are some extraordinary, amazing women. And I'm so thankful that we have built something that will go on to help other people and educate other people and actually bring real change. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
On that, I wanted to ask, you said that some people have come forward and reached out to you to talk about their experiences. Now, I know it can be hard to go publicly with that stuff, but do you find a lot of them just want to kind of confide in you about their experiences and they have zero interest in going public? Is that something that maybe they want to do, but they kind of just need some coaching? Like, hey, here's resources or avenues you can go down. Like, where do they, I don't know if we put them into buckets, kind of, but where do they kind of fit in the spectrum of things?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, Personally, I had a mix of people, some coming to me to just, simply share their story because they didn't want to hold that in. And they were like, "Thank you so much for speaking out and raising awareness and just being brave. I went through something similar." Um, some people just they didn't want to report because they felt like they weren't at a point in their lives where they could go through with like the court process and all of that, which is completely understandable. And then there are some women that I've talked to over time, and actually one of them texted me probably 2 weeks ago being like, "I finally got the courage today to report,
Hmm.
this individual." And yeah, that was so amazing to see, especially because I had been talking to her for so long. And she's like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And I said, "Take your time. Like, we're going to be here for you whenever you decide whatever you want to do. There's no rush. And like, I'm here for you." Um, but yeah, I would say a lot of women, it was mainly because they just wanted to share their story, not necessarily report it, but to at least be like, "Hey, you're not alone. Like, the same thing or something similar has happened to me."
And I'll encourage people to go online and they can search up the name that I mentioned in the bio, and they can look up some of the details because a lot of this is public, but it is fairly
Yeah.
recent. You do have ongoing matters, so I'll mention that. We won't get too much into details because I don't need the podcast to end up in some court case or something. But we just with respect to the process and everything, yeah, we won't be getting so much into that. People can look it up for themselves, but we will
Yeah.
talk about your experiences. And on that, one of the things I want to ask, we're talking about other people coming to you, but what made you able to kind of come forward and talk about your experience?
Sure. So when, my assault happened, I wanted to forget about it. And I had confided in a ex-partner at the time, and I told him what had happened. And he was very supportive, very understanding. He was like, "I believe you. I believe this happened to you. I'm sorry this happened to you, but I don't think that you should report your assault." And the reason that he said that was because look at our justice system. Nothing's going to happen. It's going to be he said, she said, and then you're going to go through court and nothing's going to get done. So that basically deterred me. And also just because I had a previous experience where I did report it to the police and they literally told me the same thing. They were like, "Oh, it's just going to be he said, she said. And it's going to be like a waste of your time." So, judging from those like two experiences, I was like, you know what? They're right. I shouldn't even bother myself with this. And I just shoved it down and tried to forget about it. And then I'm scrolling on I think it was Instagram or TikTok. And then all of a sudden, I see this woman talking about um, Mark Holland, who is another well-known serial offender in the news, which your viewers can search up. They'll find a lot about him. But she was talking about Mark Holland, and in the comments underneath that video was also Justin's name, and a lot of women were sharing experiences or like their own stories in the comments, being like, "I've encountered him, and he's like a terrible human being," or "He's done this and this and this." So I had showed it to my partner and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's other women out here that have experienced similar behavior, similar things that I've gone through. I'm not alone. Like, I'm not the only one." And in that moment, I just kind of felt so vindicated because it was just that reality, like, I'm not crazy. I didn't make this
Hmm.
up. Like, this actually happened to me. Um, and he told me, he was like, "I think you'll help a lot of people, a lot of women, if you speak out." And I remember the first thing I said to him, and I say this all the time, I said, "No, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to be known as the girl that got sexually assaulted," because I had so much shame. I was like, that's not the career or like the title or whatever I want for myself in the future. And eventually I just started thinking about it more and more and more. Like, what does speaking out actually mean? And I just realized that I'm in the best position possible to speak out because I live in a democratic society. I live in an amazing country that protects me under free speech rights and things like that. So it's like, you know what? I don't really have anything to lose. I'm just going to speak out on TikTok and make a video about what my experience was. And that's what it was meant to do, was just to educate and bring awareness. And the individual tried to silence me. And when he tried to do that, I was like, I'm not going to let him win. And I decided to go and formally report it.
That was through the TikTok stuff, like when you're putting out your experience.
Yes,
okay.
correct. Yeah.
How long did you think on this before reporting it? Like, what I'm just kind of wondering, like, what a time frame looks like. It's kind of picking at your brain, and you're thinking about it, and you're seeing all these things, other people talking. Like, so how long was that process for you to come forward?
That's a good question. I think I saw the initial video of the woman speaking on Mark Holland. That must have been November 10th or 11th. And I think on the 12th of that night, must have been around like 8 o'clock, I decided, let me make the video. So I spent I would say a good day just kind of thinking about it, going back and forth in my head. And I'm kind of one of those people, like once I get fixated on something, I'm going to think about it for the whole day or until I solve it or come to a conclusion. But yeah, I made the TikTok on November 12th and it blew up overnight. And then the next day, November 13th, it was actually one of my anniversaries with my boyfriend. So we were going to celebrate. And then basically the accused, his girlfriend, she's a paralegal. She had messaged me on TikTok pretending that she was like a victim of him as well. And basically being like, I want to share my story with you. I want to share photos and videos. Can I have your email? Can I have your phone number? And I said, well, I don't really give it out to people I don't know. So I'm going to make a random email for you so you can share these things. Because obviously I'm not going to turn away someone who's a survivor or a victim. So I made the email and I shared it with her. And then I got a cease and desist letter. And I literally was just like, I've never gotten any kind of legal letter before ever in my life. So I was freaking out, obviously. It was very scary. And I just sat there on my bed for 2 hours thinking about what do I do next? I don't even know what to do. And then I just finally came to the conclusion, we need to go report it right now. And it was probably 12:30 at night. And I just went to the police station and I walked in and I said, I need to report a sexual assault. And they took my statement. And from there, everything kind of just happened.
Okay. I just think about all the junk mail that I delete and all the things that always says in the subject lines, this is some legal thing. I'm like, yeah, come find me. I should delete it. So that probably would have been my response, but good on you for actually paying attention. So, you were mentioning Project Medusa and the Survivor Collective. So can you talk a bit about those programs? I was going to do that more at the end, but you've mentioned them, and I think they're worth mentioning now because we're going to talk about a bunch of the work that you're doing there. So can you explain what each one of those things is?
Yes. So the Survivor Collective, we've been doing some rebranding, just throwing ideas around on how we want to present ourselves and, what is our mission. But the Survivor Collective is basically the social enterprise side of things. And that's more for public speaking, advocacy, and engagement. So if people are looking for speakers or for survivors, that is an outlet that they can go to find myself and Sarah, as well as just other individuals that we know that are advocating in the space as well. We're kind of just that middle point, if you will, to connecting survivors or advocates just to speaking opportunities. And the Project Medusa is our nonprofit initiative. So that's where we push out a lot of content on our Instagram that advocates on sexual violence, sexual exploitation, coercion, pretty much everything. And we raise a lot of just calls to action. We focus on policy. I know Sarah's working on some numbers right now where it basically shows the amount of damages that survivors incur even after they report and they go through the whole criminal process and the re-traumatization of everything. And also, I would just say part of what Project Medusa focuses on is really bringing all the communities together and ensuring a space where survivors and victims are not exploited in spaces that they're meant to be safe in.
Well, would that be kind of, I had a guest on here, Cassandra Harvey, and that was kind of in that realm of, she goes out and tells her story, and she obviously has the ongoing lawsuit with, was it Victim Services Toronto?
Victim services.
Yeah. So, but this comes into like, as a survivor, you're telling your story. Other people are bringing you in to conferences or whatever other events. They're making money off those events, but they're not necessarily paying you, or they're paying you very little for sharing your story. So is that kind of what you're talking about, like being safe in those spaces?
Yeah, that's definitely one aspect of it. Obviously, don't want to name names and get in
Mm.
trouble, but I would also say one of the issues that I experienced was the fact that I felt my voice was being taken away from me, and the organization was really speaking on behalf of me. And some of the stuff that they were saying were false narratives, and they were inserting it into the
Mm.
media. And that was something that I just don't want anyone to go through, or like stress that I don't want any survivor to ever deal with, is to feel like their voice is being taken away and their narrative is being written or said by someone else. I think that's why sometimes people come to me. Actually, last night I had a girl message me being like, "Can you advocate on my case?" And I said, like, I will support you, but I don't want to speak for you. I think you should speak for yourself and, stand strong in your voice, and whatever you share, like, I'm more than happy to repost it. But yeah, just making sure that no one is telling your story for you. I think it's stronger when it comes from you.
Yeah, certainly. I think a lot of people have trouble with the articulation of it. And even sometimes when I'm on doing a podcast and it's like a topic that I have ideas of, or a very baseline knowledge of, sometimes even hard to think of like, what do you ask or how do you ask it, right? So as somebody who's trying to explain something they went through that's very traumatic, horrific, whatever, it might be, yeah, that could be very difficult, really, with coming up with the words for it. So being there to support them through that piece definitely could be a service that could be provided for people, because I think that'd be very difficult, especially if it's not something that you're
Yeah.
used to, and depending on the forum you talk in, it can be very intimidating. So the
Yeah.
one of the things I was going to ask about, and this is some of the topics that you specialize in. So, I mentioned at the beginning, we're talking about human trafficking, or like an element of it. And it's a very broad term. So many things can fall under there. You're talking about some stuff that is very unique. That definitely doesn't make it into the news the amount it should. This is stuff I've seen being I just finished a tour in our gang suppression team. We worked in all the nightclubs, the venues, like the lounges, and go to all the big events at all the arenas. And some of the stuff I would come across was shocking. Um, so you're talking about dating coaches, sex tourism, stuff in those realms. Can you explain a bit about, we'll start on the dating coach side. Obviously, this falls
Yeah.
into some of your own personal experiences, but, I don't think people really understand that these things are out there.
Yeah.
So can you explain a bit about it, and kind of educate people?
Yeah, sure. I will say I feel like people are scared to approach this topic because there's just a lot of labels associated with that topic. Even just like being a woman in this, environment, speaking out against the dating coaches, people make like assumptions, or they'll say things online. So I think that's another reason that people kind of get deterred. But the dating coaches, they kind of fit into, like I said, the manosphere is one big community, but they're also known as pickup artists, and they kind of fit into that whole alpha male identity. But essentially, what they do is their target audience is definitely young men, 100%. Men who either, they may not feel as confident approaching women, they don't really know how to talk to women, or it's just men who, they feel like they're on this high up level and they want to find other men who are on the same level as them. And there's many aspects to what the dating coaches do, but for example, they'll use Telegram, which is an encrypted platform, and they talk in these chats. And these chats involve men from all over the world. There are different races, different ages, different religions. So there's like a whole mix of men in these chats. And the dating coaches teach these men different tactics, which are sex trafficking tactics or human trafficking tactics that have been almost rebranded and repackaged to come off as pickup lines or pickup artistry, or this is how you approach a woman, or this is what you do, when it's really just manipulation and coercion that's been designed in a way to come across as a social interaction, a stage social interaction.
It's softening the image, essentially. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And one of the big things that they talk about in these chats, so they have different kind of codes for games. So like day game, message game, night game. Game just refers to like your ability to pick up women. So day would be like, how many women can you pick up during the day? Night would be, how many women can you pick up during the night? And like message game, how many women can you text? And then that's where they start bringing in AI. So they have this automation tool, which basically sends out personalized messages to thousands of girls, like on Instagram. So you may think that you're getting a message from a guy and it's a genuine message, but in reality, he sent that to thousands of girls. So it's the whole idea behind it is mass outreach. It's not about genuine connection and actually meeting someone. It's a numbers game. If I've slept with this amount of women, or I texted like this amount of women in a day, like they basically equivalent that to success, to I'm a high value man because I've pulled X amount of women in this amount of hours, or on this day. Trying to think. There's so many layers to this, but
I was gonna, if I could jump in real quick, when you talked about alpha male, I guess that could mean different things to different people. Because as soon as you say alpha male, I think of like, and maybe this is just my experience and the people I've talked to on here.
Andrew Tate.
No, that guy's a loser. When I think of alpha male, I'm thinking like Navy SEAL, takes care of his family, has the wife and the kids, can do both things and have like these two spheres that they can kind of operate in. And then there's like this other idea of an alpha male in this world, on the side of things that you're talking about, right? Like, and to me, I just picture like a Jersey Shore, like that old show Jersey Shore, and it was somebody from that type of thing. And it's like, yeah, definitely nobody in the sphere I'm in would think that's an alpha male. Like those all just are a bunch of losers.
Yeah.
That have a lot of things wrong in their lives that they got to fix. Might be the reason why they are the way they are. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, I had such a different image when you say alpha male. So this is just something I kind of wanted to point out. I was like, wow, yeah, I think it's somebody who can operate in different spheres, but they're there doing what they have to do, right? Take care of themselves, take care of their family. And when you're good at home, then that translates into other aspects of your life, whether you're a manager
Absolutely.
at work or you got to take care of other people. So it's such a different view, I guess.
Yeah. And I think I really agree with you there. I think that is what being an alpha male is. And I also hate that we're labeling men as, oh, are you alpha? Are you beta? I don't think men need more labels. I think what being a alpha man is, or a great man, is just being someone that, like you said, provides for their family, respects everyone around them, women included, and I think uplifts everyone. I would even say maybe even you preach the word of God, but teach their own. A lot of these, individuals in these group chats, they have ideas of what they think an alpha male should be, and they assume what these dating coaches tell them. Oh, if you're not making millions, if you're not driving, like Andrew Tate says, a Bugatti or a Lamborghini, if you don't talk to 100 women, like you're not an alpha male. And it's just like, stop for a minute and think, these people who tell you the information online, would you actually want to live their life for a moment? Do you actually want to be that person? And another thing that they also push onto these men is called looks maxing, which is another new kind of idea almost. And the whole point of looks maxing is just go to the gym, get ripped, inject some HRT,
Mhm.
which is something they also promote, which is self-injecting hormones that make you more aggressive and quote unquote more dominant because the women supposedly like that. And I don't know where they're getting this from, but yeah, basically they just are encouraging men, hey, you need to have millions of dollars, you need to be as fit as you can, you need to have this many women. And it's basically commodifying intimacy and promoting things like, I would just say, the overall erosion of monogamy.
Mm, okay. You know what? I tend to, I agree. And I'll say, I don't think we need to go the route of like, what was that? There was like a trend where it was like dad bods are in. You don't need to do
Yeah,
that. You can
we
go to the
don't.
gym and like take care of yourself. But yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is so corrosive. And I think the point that they miss too, or maybe they just don't have the foresight to think about this, especially if you're like a younger male, is just the erosion it's going to have on your life down the road. And that could be, I mean,
Yeah,
you could probably live this. Some of these guys, they could probably live these lifestyles for like 5 years, maybe 10 years. But with everyone I've dealt with, and I've dealt with organized crime members, gangsters, everything. They've got millions of dollars. They drive the Bugattis and all those other cars. They've got the women. You go to the bar and you see them in the booth, and they got 20 women with them. Like they're living the life that you're talking about. And then those same people I've seen crying and breaking down because
yeah,
they don't have any real friends. And,
exactly.
the whole life is like this giant facade. It's all just a big act. And it's hard. It's hard to actually keep up with that. I think is the biggest part. But yeah, I mean, I think you're touching on a bunch of stuff that's it's going to take a lot of change. A long time.
I really, yeah, I really do. I feel for men as a whole, not specifically these men in the Telegram chats, but men as a whole, because I think there's a lot of propaganda out there these days, especially as a young male. And it's like, what direction do you even go? Who do you even listen to? Um, and the dating coaches have found a way to incentivize not only just women and treat them as commodities, but even the men to, you know, to an extent. They found a way to find individuals yeah, like you said, they may need a friend. They may need someone who can give them some actual good advice to help them, you know, pick up girls or go out and things like that. And I think maybe there could be a room where dating coaches, if they actually want to do good, could become regulated and help people, build a better life if they have true good intentions. But as of right now, I think the way that the dating coach community is set up, it's set to just feed men false narratives of an idea of what they think success is.
Hmm.
When truthfully, success is whatever you define it. Like, you don't need someone to tell you that you need $1 million or X, Y, and Z. I think success is whatever you know, define it as your own.
I think a big piece of that is kind of like the safety and security, right? Like if you can provide safety and security for you and the person that you're with, your family, all that stuff. I think that's kind of like the foundation, and a lot of that just seems to be missing nowadays. Especially, I don't even know if it's like fatherless homes. It's just people are choosing the wrong role models when they get to a certain point, and they're trying to emulate this stuff. And it's like, how do you get through to them like that's not real. That's not how the world
Yeah.
works. People, you know, it's social media. You only see the best of everything. You don't see any of the stuff behind the scenes, the hard work that goes into making something successful, to keeping everybody happy and healthy. Like there are down times, but yeah, everybody's kind of living with this like veneer on the whole time. Um, so we're talking a bit about these dating coaches. Like, how common are these things? Like, is there like a way to quantify? Yeah,
Quantify.
like who's out there, who's doing these things? Like, why?
Yeah.
I just don't get how this isn't even an industry, but it is. So,
Yeah. Like I had mentioned before, the dating coaches are just one big part of the manosphere. So I would say, man, that it's really hard to quantify it because it's just there's so many people involved in it. Like, and it's not even the dating coaches. It can be even those what's it called? The fitness
Oh
guys.
yeah.
They're extension of it as well. Um, I would say I really had to, like a good couple, like 100,000
Mm.
at least, which is another thing that, if you think about it for a minute, if they're telling all of these men in these chats, hey, go out there and get $1 million and like whatever, you have to like actually come back down to reality for a second, like you said, and be like, there's no way that every single one of us is going to go on and get hundreds of millions of dollars and like X amount of women. And I feel like they're also just setting males up for failure as
Yeah.
well to go out and to do these things. And then they're not actually going to get any sort of meaningful relationship or whatever it is that they're looking for in return. And something that you brought up, you were asking me about was the sexual tourism. And, they call themselves passport bros, which basically they travel in a group together and they'll go to countries, primarily South America or Latin America, because there's more quote unquote legal loopholes and less laws to exploit women. And that
Mm.
the women there are more submissive because there's less placeholders in place for them to actually say no. So it's easier for them to consent or not consent. And they basically encourage men to travel. Hey, go to Colombia. You can exploit the women there. You can sleep with them easily. They'll say yes because they're super submissive. They'll clean your house, things like that. It's very toxic.
Jesus, that's like some super devious shit. Like to who
Yeah.
researches how to be how to exploit people, right? Like that's some interesting stuff. Do you find that a
Yeah.
lot of people will then tour to Canada and like would they come here and try to, I don't know, get the services of the dating coaches here, or they go elsewhere?
Um, well, no, Western societies like Canada, US, they're frowned upon because they're like the women there, they're stronger in their sense of
Mm.
self and their identity and their rights. They know that they're protected. But they will be like, if you do want to pick up women, oh, like let's say, for example, you're in Toronto, well, go to King Street because King Street, it's easier to pick up women there because they're all drunk because all the clubs are in this area. Like that's something. And they'll also give each other tips in the chat. They'll be like, go to this place at 12 p.m. at nighttime and look for this girl, she'll definitely sleep with you or something like that. Like they have guides for like specific cities all over the world and like the best areas to go, the best times to go, when to pick up women, how to speak to them. Like they're studying scripts in these chats on how to approach women. They're overthinking it. It's
Wow.
crazy because back in the day, I don't think my parents needed like a script
Yeah.
to meet each other. It was just they met each other and that was it.
Yeah. Are these guys charging like is it like a monthly fee or do they charge like a one-time fee? Like how do they structure it?
Yeah, so from what I've seen, you can be in the Telegram chat for free. It doesn't matter. But if you want, I guess, real satisfaction or real guarantee that you're going to pick up women, they'll encourage you to buy their courses. And their courses are normally tiered. So, like, let's say the first tier is like $90, the second tier is like 300, and then the final tier is like 1,000. And from what I've seen, it's like one-on-one coaching calls, videos showing how they've picked up girls, which also is another issue because these women are being filmed without their consent and photographed without their consent. And some of it is explicit, and they share those in the Telegram chat. Unfortunately, I've seen it with my own eyes, but yeah, they'll also promote international boot camps. So these men can pay, $1,000 to travel to, let's say Mexico, and they'll meet up with a bunch of other guys in Mexico at this house, and they'll spend maybe a month down there and a couple of weeks just picking up girls and practicing the sexual tourism and really just quote unquote making the most out of their time down there.
Jesus. These people must be missing a ton in their lives. Like I don't even know where you would find the time to go do this stuff. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
Do you find are females involved in this world at all?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that I notice is a lot of people in this world, this atmosphere, is they go by aliases a lot. And that's something that I was struggling with. I was like, how do I find information on these people? Like, I can't find anything about them online. And then I realized, wait, they're using aliases because I found out, this individual, I found out what his actual real name was, and it's completely different from the name that he uses online.
I think you're going to find your journalism career will cross over with a lot of
Yeah,
investigative techniques from police.
exactly. And I'm like, using the journalism skills to find out more about these people. I started finding their LinkedIns and stuff, and I'm just like, I got you now. But um, yeah, there is a lot of women that are involved in this, and their role is to sort of facilitate and make the other women feel comfortable. And they can appear in roles where it's either they're like a quote unquote assistant. That's the term that's been used to describe their role, but they'll just kind of be with the girls and they'll be like, yeah, like he's a great guy. Like, come on, have a couple more shots. And they'll kind of facilitate it. And these women will know about the abuse that these perpetrators do or the kind of tactics that they use. And they encourage that behavior, or they'll help facilitate it, help make the woman feel a little bit more comfortable in a nightlife setting so that eventually, when she's invited to an after party or a private party, she's more likely to say yes because there's other girls around. But those girls are working with the dating coaches. And one thing that you'll find is a lot of dating coaches, they own and manage OnlyFans accounts. And some of those girls, they then hire to act as like assistants or like other girls who are, there to party, but it's actually they've been paid by the dating coaches to make you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's something I've seen to a degree through obviously doing the gang work. We would go through different lounges and you would see just like a lot of our job was observing people and their behaviors. And when you watch like some of the females involved, I don't think they get as much, I don't know if I would call it credit, but they don't get spoken of as much as the guys, right? Like it's always like the guys are the ones
Yeah.
committing the crime, or we kind of blame them mostly. But yeah, women were, well, I think what had happened was like a lot of the groups started figuring out like, wow, they really don't bother the females in the group. So the females started holding all the guns, holding all the drugs. They started being
Yeah.
very involved in it. And then what we started to see too was like on the escort side, we would see a lot of escorts. Like you would just see a couple females by themselves, like no guys. So they were almost empowered to a point where they were running their own business. And now, you know, there's a lot of debate whether some of that stuff should be legalized, not legalized. I'm more talking about like the nefarious side where they're doing things that are like actually criminal. But we see like females now. There was some stuff, it was in the news a while ago. I want to say it was like a Jessica King. She made the news, and it'd be something worth looking up. But she was putting out some crazy videos where they were like taking guys and drugging them. Right, they take them back to the hotel, drug them, and then they were going through like using the face ID on their phones and getting into their camera or their bank accounts and transferring money out and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, man, that's pretty bold. And you wouldn't think like of females necessarily doing that, but it's just to bring up the point, like everybody's involved. And I always say this on my social
Yeah.
media, like crime is a equal opportunity employer. It doesn't care who you are,
Oh, for
where you
sure.
come from.
Absolutely.
It will welcome you. And, we just have to make sure we're kind of looking at both sides of the equation when it comes to that. But I think it would definitely be more dangerous for females in the sense that just in the physical space, right? Like if people are going to get physically violent, then it can be a lot more dangerous for females in that sense. So
Absolutely. Even if you look at, Ghislaine Maxwell, for an example, a lot of the times people focus on Jeffrey Epstein, but she was definitely a mastermind for sure behind a lot of the stuff that went on. Um, And in terms of like the women in this environment and some of the jobs they do, yeah, it definitely is a real thing. And I think, maybe at one point they did start off as a victim themselves and they've been exploited and they kind of also feel like they don't have any other choice than to help the perpetrator. That's another reason that women also get forced into this kind of work. It could be the perpetrator has explicit images of you and they don't want it released. So they're going to help, do a couple things for this perpetrator just so
Hmm.
they don't ever release those photos. So yeah, I think as a woman, definitely being alert and aware of your surroundings, who you're associating yourself with, any kind of behavior that makes you feel uncomfortable or inappropriate, shut it down right away. Don't let it get any further for sure.
Yeah, and just kind of on the recruitment side, as you were mentioning, like it makes, if a female comes up and approaches another female, the person that they're kind of targeting might feel safer because it's like, oh, this is another female. Like, why would they try to hurt me?
Yeah.
And maybe there's a bit of sense of like, the whole girl power thing. And it's like, we're safer together and they understand, some of the issues I might face. So why would they do that? Uh, so I could see that being like a very powerful recruiting tool, especially you get a female on your side as the offender. Um, it kind of makes me think of one other time I came across this. Was when I was working at a concert, and when we were leaving, there was a guy walking with us. We in Edmonton here, we walk from the arena back to our police headquarters, it's just like 2 blocks. And as we were walking, there's like a bunch of hotels kind of down the streets. And this guy was walking beside us. He had like a bunch of tags hanging, like he was like some VIP or somebody. And he was talking to another guy in front of us. And I could hear him mentioning how he was going around, like, I guess he worked as like almost like a promoter. And he was going around and recruiting girls to come back to his hotel room. Like, hey, you want to go party with, whoever this celebrity is? Come back to our room.
Um,
And it's like, that's crazy. I just thought that was insane. Like they have guys going around at the concert actively recruiting people to come back to their hotel room. Now, is that part of it illegal? No. But there's illegal stuff going to happen at that. And then it's like, just think of like some of the girls at this concert when we're walking away. It's like you see girls and they're, 14, 16. It's like, who are they recruiting? Like, what girls might they be bringing back?
yeah.
So it's kind of scary.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is scary. And even with some of the promoters here, I've heard stories that because they're a promoter, they have like, I guess, an understanding with the bouncer. And a lot of the times, actually, when they bring in individuals with the club promoter, they don't even check the IDs.
Hmm.
So there's girls in there that have gone into the club underage. I mean, I can even tell you that I've been into clubs underage. It happens absolutely. There needs to be more regulations in the nightlife in many aspects, in terms of who's serving the alcohol, you know what's happening inside of these nightclubs, who's at the door, are people actually checking the IDs, how are we ensuring the safety of people coming into nightclubs. um, it's a really scary world once you step into just this world of advocacy and looking at the dating coaches or just looking at everything that happens on the daily. You realize that this world is so unsafe.
Hmm.
There's not really many people that you can trust.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. I try not to, when I go out and I talk to people about just some of the dangers out there, I try to tell them, like, you don't have to go out and be afraid of everything, but you
Afraid.
definitely have to be 1,000 times more vigilant and aware and educated on these things than probably the average person is. I think people just largely take it for granted. They're like, I walk down the street and nobody shot at me, therefore shootings don't happen. It's like, these things happen, right? So it's just about being a little more aware and vigilant. Um, when we were just talking a bit about some of this recruitment side of it, so one of the things you had mentioned when we were chatting before was like recruitment pipelines. Can you
Yep.
explain a bit about this concept? And we might have touched on a bunch of it, but if we could just kind of dive a little deeper into it.
Yeah. So there's multiple ways you can approach the recruitment aspect, but one way that is most common, like I kind of mentioned, the automated AI messaging. So, say for example, they'll put into like the AI, hey, come to, I'll use a random club, come to like this club at 10 p.m. Free drinks, you'll be on guest list. They'll send that message out to maybe like, let's say 800 girls, just mass DMs on Instagram. And let's say 50 out of those 800 girls are like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I want to come to the club. They'll then respond being like, all right, great. Meet me here at 10 o'clock. They'll go into the club. And they're like already happy because they got in for free. They got it on guest list. They don't have to pay for alcohol. Obviously, that's, the most reason why people say yes to going on guest list, because they don't want to pay for the alcohol or the entry to go into the club. So once they're in the club, that's when the assistants or the females start coming around and they're like giving the girls drinks. Everyone's having a good time. And then towards like the end of the night, the invitation for, do you want to come to an after party? It's going to be a lot of fun. This person's going, like this well-known promoter's going, this photographer's going. Like you said, the incentives start to happen. Incentives can be really anything. They can even be like, yeah, if you come back to the apartment, there's actually going to be a filmmaker there. And I know you said you really want to be an actress. I can introduce you guys. It's things like that, right? So the incentive happens and then they'll invite you to like a private party. So it's a more enclosed space. There's less people around to see what's going to happen. And then in that enclosed space or private parties is where the assaults happen, the recruitment happens, or just even more incentivization. So the incentivization could be like, why don't you, come stay with me more at my house and live here and be one of my like best friends? That's one main example of recruitment pipeline. It's just, I would say social media is the direct point of contact, especially if you're a young woman, just because it allows you to mass outreach thousands of girls. And that just goes back to being treated as a commodity rather than a human being.
I wonder who would respond to that. Like you just get a random message and be like, this is spam. But I guess you got to have like some more tactics to it, right? Like you're saying, okay, now I start to see familiar faces maybe going.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So mutuals on Instagram is a big one. And what they'll do is, let's say, for example, your friend follows this dating coach or nightclub promoter. That promoter will then go through your friend's followers and start following all the girls in there. Because then when you go on your account, it'll be like, oh, well, my friend follows him. So obviously this must be like a normal person. They're okay. They're a promoter in like spaces that I go to. So they obviously must be trusted or a safe person to be around. So it's through the contacts of mutuals as well that they kind of create this false sense of safety.
Okay. And I guess on that, maybe something worth pointing out is I think a lot of people might have this idea of, sexual assault or the sexual violence is like a full-on rape. Like someone's getting held down and forced against their will to do something. Whereas a lot of what you're pointing out, and I would say this is the more common side of it, and the things that I've seen or the files I've investigated, it's the slow, subtle coercion and the manipulation, the social pressure, because that would be the more common side of it. I don't know if you agree or you have a different take.
No, I absolutely agree. You're absolutely right there. Just for what I could say from my experience and the experiences that other people have shared with me, yes, a lot of it is that let me get you to feel safe with me, that trust building, that no, you can trust me, I'm a good guy. And then eventually, as it progresses onwards and onwards and onwards, and there's less people around or less witnesses and spaces get more private, that's when the exploitation happens and, sexual assault or sexual violence may occur. And, you made a great point. A lot of people think that sexual assault or sexual violence is being forcibly held down and raped. Sexual assault and sexual violence can literally just be someone touched like your shirt or your chest and you didn't consent. You didn't say yes to that. It could be an unwanted comment that someone says that objectifies you or, degrades you in whatever way. But it's not always physical contact. It can be comments as well.
Yeah. We're just kind of coming up to the end of time. There's so much I want to talk to you about here. There's so much to get through. I do want to make sure we talk about, as I was mentioning in your bio, the education piece. So, with some of the work that you're doing now, who have you been able to talk to? Who have you been able to get in front of? Are you speaking to government? Is it more nonprofits, police? Like, what kind of spaces are you in?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I feel like we're in every space right now
Yeah.
because I've talked to so many people. I won't talk too much about like Sarah's work just because I think she's going to come on
Yeah.
here and talk about
Yeah.
that with you. But me, primarily, my interest is really with um, law enforcement. And I've been talking to this really amazing individual. Her name is Marley Liss, but she focuses a lot on the issues of restorative justice. I wouldn't say that I'm an advocate for restorative justice, but I'm trying to I'm
Mm.
trying to just dip my toes in and see what it's like, just because I really do want to work with young men in general. And I want to teach them positive ideals of what success could look like so they don't fall for like, propaganda. And I think that's where the law enforcement could come in. Definitely working with the juveniles or youth offenders could be an avenue I definitely see myself in, or just advocating. But yeah, I would say mainly law enforcement and individuals involved in restorative justice.
I think you're the first person I've ever heard say that they were looking to work with the males on the male side of it, because usually I would say, and it kind of goes back to some of the stuff we were saying earlier, they're just looked at as the offenders in most of this. And, you know, when I first got into policing, usually would think like, okay, that's the bad guy. That's the good guy. Like, who cares what happens to the bad guy? But then, in some of those cases, and I've seen a lot of people turn it around. I mean, even through this podcast, I've talked to people who've done very high level drug trafficking, people who've been involved in murder cases, or, all kinds of stuff. And they've either done their time or they've gone through some different programs depending on the type of crime. And now they're one of the biggest advocates and probably one of the strongest voices for speaking out against something, because they've gone through it. They've paid their penance, hopefully. And now they can kind of speak out against it. So, and if we just throw people away, um, there is true evil out there, and some of it does need to just be locked up. I'll be the first one to say that. But
Absolutely.
there are people who it's like, okay, you did have a really shitty set of circumstances, and maybe that's something with you kind of came out wrong, like the way you do things or you think about it. We got to fix that piece of it. So, yeah, I think you're gonna find yourself kind of working like a very niche space with that. So I hope that goes really well for you, because it is something that does need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Have you been able to talk to like any politicians? Is anybody on that side of it, like the policy making side, really interested?
Um, Yes, we've had a couple conversations. We met with Alicia Cook and we gave her a couple of suggestions on Bill C-16, which is the one that talks about coercive control. Oh gosh, who else? I met Melissa Landsman. Unfortunately, didn't really get to have much of a conversation with
Mm.
her. It's been really hard to get in touch with MPs. Normally, when they email me, they're like, "I'm too busy."
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm stopping. I'm still like emailing and trying to talk to as many people as I can. Whoever, they don't even need to be MPs. I mean, I'm grateful even just to have this conversation with you. I've learned a lot from you that I'm definitely gonna check out and apply. But yeah, I mean, I can also say I definitely agree that there's offenders out there that should be locked up and need to be locked up. But at the same time, I also acknowledge there are some, young men out here that genuinely just need some guidance and need some help. And I want to give them that good guidance and not tell them that you need $1 million and a Lamborghini.
Yeah. I want to ask about your current situation, just kind of where are you at? And maybe I'll also ask it in a way that, can you talk about from your experience to where you are right now, just the physical and mental impacts, if you have one or the other or both? Like, Where
Sure.
are you at with that type of stuff?
Yeah, so physical, I have struggled with an eating disorder all my life. And before this happened, like me speaking out and coming forward with everything, I was finally at a point in my life where I was actually eating pretty well. Um, and then everything that happened kind of caused me to fall back into an eating disorder, which is something that I think, people who decide to speak out, they experience a lot of physical, I would just say, struggles. My body sometimes I felt like it's just failing, whether it's from stress or just not eating enough. And then finally, I'm getting that strength back because of all the work that we're doing, and seeing that it's helping other people has empowered me to get back up on that horse and keep going, and to, just be out there and advocate. In terms of mental, I would say I'm doing a lot better, but there are times where I definitely grieve my old life or just miss the person that I used to be. And what I mean by that is, I'm like, sometimes it just feels like everybody knows my business or what happens to me.
Okay.
And I feel a little bit of an imposter syndrome as well. I'm like, I've come so far and I never could have expected this. But yeah, definitely there are moments where I'm like, I just want to be an ordinary girl again that no one knows, just do my own thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, that one, I'm fighting with it right now. But at the end of the day, I know that this is where I'm meant to be. And as long as I'm helping people, then I'm doing something right in this world.
I don't, as life kind of changes, and I've seen this through the work that I do, even trying to get, like when I was first trying to get the podcast running, but some of the projects I run now, you would think like, oh, this should be super easy. Like we should all be able to agree on whatever it is I'm trying to work on. And you'll still run into roadblocks. And it is, I'm almost 40, and it is a never ending battle. So hopefully don't let that get you down. Um, Life in general just constantly keep kicking you in the ass. And it's just kind of how you recover and, keep pushing forward with it. Just as we're at the end of our time, where is the best place that people can follow you, the projects, and everyone?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Justine Hopkins _, or you can follow at the Survivor Collective at Project Medusa on Instagram. We post on there pretty regularly, so that'll be the best place to find me, to get in contact with me. Yeah, I'm really grateful to be on this show, and thank you so much for having this platform for people to come on here and just share their story and advocate.
Yeah, you know what? We'll definitely get you back on, get some updates on where you're at, and obviously, I have Sarah is going to be on here in the future, so I'm looking forward to it. And thanks for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening in and following along with the discussions. Be sure to click the follow or subscribe button on your respective listening platform. Also, check out the Quiet Professional on X and Instagram under TQP780. And most importantly, please share where you can. Everyone has a part to play in getting these education and information pieces out there, so pass it along. Thanks again.